This is the new Emax Babyhawk, and no, your eyes aren't fooling you. These are 4-inch propellers. Is it even a baby hawk at that point? The original Babyhawk-R had 2-inch props, and it flew amazing, and then people figured out that it flew even more amazing with 3-inch props on it. But if you look around, like, nobody is flying 4-inch quads, and that's really why. Why not? Why is there this big gap in what is most popular? Lots of people fly 5 inches. Lots of people fly 2-inch and 3 inches. Nobody's flying 4 inches. Well, Emax thinks that 4 inches is the perfect size for this little racing form factor. And today we're going to investigate why. And along the way, we'll go ahead and review this quadcopter. I'm Joshua Bardwell, and you're going to learn something today. What changes when you go from a giant prop like this 13-incher here down to a smaller prop like a little 5-incher here? Larger props make more thrust and they make it more efficiently, so you might think, well, why don't we all just fly giant props? And yet if you think about it, you already know the answer to that. For one thing, quadcopters with giant props are giant. And that has effects on their handling and their flight time, but that's not actually what I think we're here to talk about today. What we're here to talk about today is just the raw size of the quadcopter. People like micro quadcopters because this guy here, you fly this in a park and sometimes people get a little bit concerned. But you fly something like this little guy here and nobody gets mad. It's quiet. You can crash into things and not damage them. But you give up a lot, don't you? You give up a lot in terms of performance when you go down to these smaller props. These quadcopters tend not to be as fast. They're nimble, but they don't have the same top end, and oftentimes they don't have the same flight time as bigger quadcopters. And that's why immediately after the sort of glut of really good 2-inch quads came out, people immediately started working their way back up in the props. They wanted more of that speed and performance back. You end up at something like this, which is a Diatone GT349. This is a 3-inch racing quadcopter, and I don't volunteer to get smacked in the head with it, but it's small and it seems light and inoffensive, and this is pretty much where the development seems to have stopped. Because if you compare these guys, this one feels like it fits in your hand, and this one feels like it's just slightly over the line. The Emax 4-inch and other 4-inch quadcopters like it feel more like big quads than like little quads. And that seems to be where people draw the line. But should they? That's the question that Emax is raising with the Babyhawk 4-inch. Because what they're trying to do here is take the advantages of a micro with the handling and speed of a 5-inch. And that's a very interesting proposition. What are the advantages of a micro? Well, smaller quadcopters are more durable. You can crash them because they have less mass. They don't break as easily. They are more nimble. For tight track racing, a light quadcopter like this is going to do better. How is it going to do on the straights? Wide open? Maybe not as good as a 5-inch, but this is actually a really, really viable racing quad. And in order to prove that, let's take a look at some racing. Yes, I not only went to a race, but I hosted a race here at my house, and I'm racing the 4-inch. There are 5 inches in this class, and I'm not gonna, I don't like to toot my own horn, but I actually won this class. Actually, I would have won this class, but in the final I dropped out because as the host, I thought it was unseemly to try to take prizes. Let me ask you, if you didn't know this was a 4-inch, would you think this might be a 5-inch? It doesn't look slow. I mean, here, in fact, I think this part is really where it shows the best. This straight here, where you just open up as much as you can. See, even here on this straight, I'm restrained on the throttle because I got to hit that gate, but we're really ripping it up. I'm never quite getting to full throttle, and that's kind of my point, especially on tight maneuverable tracks. The lack of top-end speed, and I do think this quad would lose to a 5-inch in a straight drag race, but the lack of top-end speed on most sort of tighter racetracks means that you actually do fine with this guy. And because it's lighter, because it's smaller, it crashes better. I didn't change a single prop all day just on principle. I think this is a really, really good racing quad, in as much as I, as a mediocre racing pilot, am qualified to say that. Look, see, I'm still in the air. Yeah, finish the race. I don't know. What do you guys think? There we go. Now I'm down for good. Battery strap. So now that we've discussed the general pros and cons of a 4-inch racing quadcopter, and maybe you're convinced that this is something that's worth looking at, let's take a look at the Babyhawk-R 4-inch specifically. And it's not going to look that different to anybody who has seen a Babyhawk before. It's the same sort of beetle shell plastic canopy. It's got good durability, didn't break an arm. It does come with a spare arm in the package and a spare set of props. That's very familiar to anybody who is run a Babyhawk before. The electronics are a new Emax Magnum Mini 20mm stack. Supports up to 6S voltage, although I do not think you should run 6S voltage on these motors, but the stack does support up to 6S voltage, which gives it just that little bit more reliability. You take a 6S rated ESC and you run it on 4S, and it's not going to be as likely to pop. Emax has also included a couple extra capacitors installed here. You don't need to have it hanging off the XT30 or anything like that, and it's really nice that they've done that. In the past, I've complained about the Magnum stack. The very first version of the Magnum stack didn't include smart audio, for example. You can only change the video transmitter settings by pressing buttons on it, and I thought that was a real oversight. That oversight has been corrected in this quadcopter. The stack supports smart audio and all of the modern features that you would want. If you do order the bind and fly version, it's going to come with Emax's tiny receiver, and one thing of note about that is it binds in D8 mode and it does not support telemetry. So if you're trying to do telemetry or Lua scripts, you're going to want to get the plug and play version and install your own receiver. The camera on this guy is OEM'd by Caddx. Caddx does make really good cameras at a really good price. The quality on Caddx cameras is sometimes a little bit less than from maybe like a Runcam or a Foxeer. So you may end up with a situation where you got a little bit of dust inside the camera, or the lens may need a little bit of focusing. I didn't have those problems, but those are problems that people commonly have with Caddx cameras. It is worth mentioning that this is a CCD camera, not a CMOS camera. Most modern cameras are CMOS cameras. A lot of people don't like that. And in fact, a lot of racers specifically don't like that. I can't tell if Emax was trying to cater to racers or just save a little bit of money, but it is worth pointing out this is not going to have the same resolution and dynamic range of a CMOS camera, but it's not going to have a whole bunch of digital image noise either. You can check out the DVR and see for yourself what you think. A couple things about this quadcopter that I would improve. Some of these you're going to be able to fix yourself. Some of them it's going to be on Emax. This really needs a shark fin canopy. It supports turtle mode, and that's great, but as soon as it goes over in the grass, you can't turtle over because all 4 props are in the grass. A lot of racers will run like a shark fin type thing so that it rests on like that and you can turtle back over. I personally was unable to finish one race because I ended up upside down in the grass and couldn't turtle over. This is Emax's sort of signature canopy, but on a bespoke racing quad, you really got to be able to use turtle mode. I wish they would put a shark fin here. Emax delivers the Babyhawk with the VTX antenna and the receiver antenna sticking out this hole and just basically sticking straight up in the air. And I saw Bob Rugi's review of this, and he hadn't done anything about that, and he hadn't chopped his antennas, and I'm kind of mystified as to how anybody, it just seems like the antenna would get sucked down into the props instantly. I'm kind of confused because it seems like such a glaring oversight that I can't believe Emax missed it, so maybe I'm wrong here. But personally, what I did was I took a zip tie and I zip tied both of them down just loosely against this standoff to pull them down out of the way. I'm sure that does reduce range a little bit, but I had no problems with it at a race day. I had no problems with range or anything like that. The video transmitter on all of Emax's Magnum stacks has a really confusing and annoying characteristic. It ships with some locked channels, and you're only supposed to unlock them if you have a ham license. That in and of itself is kind of confusing because my interpretation of US law, at least, is that you're not supposed to be using these video transmitters at all without a ham license. So the idea that, oh, if you're a ham, you can unlock these channels, we'll just unlock them. Just ship it unlocked. But I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not Emax's lawyer, so we'll let that pass. The annoying thing that it does is that if you go into your OSD and you set it to one of the locked channels, it doesn't transmit. It goes to the channel, it just stops transmitting. which means that you now can't get back into the OSD to change it back. You have to, well, you could push the button. It's not that bad. Or you could use the Betaflight command line. It's not that bad, but it just seems like such an oversight. If it's locked and they try to put it on a locked channel, just don't go to the channel. Just stay on the channel you're on. The very first thing that you should do, because you definitely have a ham license, otherwise you're not legal to use this, the very first thing you should do when you get this guy is unlock the video transmitter. You do that by holding down the button and plugging in power. I've got a full setup video for this quadcopter that will be coming out probably the day after this, and you can take a look on my channel. I'll link down in the video description once that video comes out if you want to know the other things I did to set this guy up. Another thing that bears mention if you're a racer is, oh, hang on, let's do this. Another thing that bears mention if you're a racer is, let's have it in the shot. Another thing that bears mentioning if you're a racer is that the up tilt angle on the camera is limited to about, just by my eyeball, that looks like about 45 or 50 degrees. This plug right here ends up pressing against the ESC and the camera can't tilt back anymore. You can see that the canopy has plenty of room for more up tilt. I gotta say, I noticed that I was not maxing out my throttle on the straights, and I wanted to increase the up tilt just a little bit, but I wasn't able to do it. I'm sure if you're clever, you could probably figure out a way around this, but it definitely is a little bit frustrating to like want to get 60 degrees so I could go faster and not be able to do it. That's not why I didn't win the race, though. Final thing worth mentioning is that the battery strap they ship with it is way too long for the battery it's intended to be used with. You can't hardly get any Velcro on it. You can't hardly cinch it down. It's so long. I ended up putting the freaking battery in sideways just to take up some of the slack. It really needs to ship with a shorter battery strap. You can make it work, but you might want to think about switching it out when you first get it. So that brings us to the end of the review, and as always, the final question: should you buy it? And I think the question here is not should you buy it, but who should think about whether to buy this? And I would say that if you are in the market for a little 3-inch or 2-inch quad like this, you should not be thinking about whether the Emax Hawk is right for you. This guy is way too fast and way too powerful to really compete. I mean, if you were to race him head to head, maybe this one would win, but you could almost fly this guy indoors. This guy just, the person who should be thinking about whether to get this is a person who is a 5-inch racer and thinks maybe a lighter, smaller, nimbler platform would do a better job, especially if you're racing tight indoor tracks or anything like that. Oh, and if you're looking to race and you'd like to try to get in under 250 grams, this guy is gonna slaughter just about anything else in the 250 gram weight class with the right battery on it. I did finish races with a 554S. It was like 3.6 volts at the end, but I did do it, and I won some of those races. So compared to like a little 3-inch, I think this guy is gonna really destroy. At the end of the day, though, we're really on a spectrum here. The bigger quads like the 5 inches are going to have more endurance and more top-end speed for more wide-open courses. The littler quads like this guy are going to be nimbler, but with lack top-end speed, and of course they're smaller and easier to cart around, for gosh sakes. So you just got to figure out where you are on that spectrum. And for some of you, 4 inches is the right place to be. And thank you to Emax for putting out a quadcopter so that you guys could get the quadcopter you need. If you've decided that the Emax Babyhawk 4-inch might be for you, there are links to this product down in the video description. And can I remind you, those are affiliate links, and one of the ways you can support my channel is by making any purchase at an affiliated vendor after you click those links. Don't want to buy the Babyhawk? Click one of those links and go buy something else. I get a small commission for any purchase you make after you click those links. It's an easy way for you to support my channel. It costs you nothing. If you don't feel like I earned your click, just go manually type in www.whatever.com. Don't click the link. The other thing you can do if you do want to help support work like this is join my Patreon. There's a link down in the video description, obviously. You can support me for a couple bucks a month and get access to a couple of special things that are open for patrons only. Thank you guys so much for watching. What do you think? If you're a 5-inch racer, would you give this a try? Would you consider dropping from a big clunky 5-inch down to this little guy? If you're a 3-inch racer, do you think this is going to be competitive in those leagues, or is it just too big? Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments. I'd love to hear. Thanks for watching. Happy flying.